5 months after Abby's disappearance, Nathaniel Kibbe, a 34-year-old firearm machinist, was involved in a violent altercation that would alter the course of his fate. The incident took place in a small town 30 miles north of Conway, when Kibbe was driving home and a female driver accidentally struck his car. Enraged, Kibbe exited his vehicle and assaulted the woman, knocking her to the ground with the handle of his pistol. What seemed like a random act of violence to the authorities was, in fact, far more significant. Kibbe, the man responsible for Abby's abduction 6 months prior, was now in trouble with the law once again. Following the assault, Kibbe was arrested, and during the process, he was ordered to surrender his gun collection, which was his most prized possession. Despite his deep belief in constitutional rights, Kibbe shockingly called the police himself before the official order, asking them to come and collect his firearms ahead of the scheduled date. This behavior puzzled the officers, especially given Kibbe's reputation for being fiercely protective of his rights. One of the officers, Eric Benjamin, who knew Kibbe personally, arrived to collect the guns. As they reached Kibbe's property, Benjamin noticed an oversized shipping container in the backyard. When he inquired about its contents, Kibbe dismissed the question, citing that the court order only required him to surrender his weapons. The officers had no reason to probe further, but Benjamin's suspicion grew. Kibbe made it clear that he did not want anyone getting too close to his personal matters. The investigation into Abby's disappearance had faded from the public eye. After months of no leads or new developments, many assumed Abby had run away, and most of the media outlets lost interest in the case. However, the local news still covered the efforts of Abby's friends and family to find her. The Bring Abby Home website remained active, with heartfelt messages from her friends and loved ones hoping for her return. Meanwhile, Kibbe's actions began to reflect a growing paranoia. Abby, who had been held captive in Kibbe's underground bunker, was now chained up at all times. The environment became more oppressive as Kibbe set up pumps and tubes next to her bed, allowing her to drink on her own while he stayed away from the bunker for days at a time. His increasing paranoia eventually led him to make a drastic decision. He told Abby, "You know too much. I need to move you."
I told him, whatever you're making in your damn basement, you better clean it up right now, because they are coming for your ass.
He placed her in the trunk of his car and drove for what felt like hours before stopping at another location. Kibbe carried Abby into a room where she was placed on a mattress. She realized that her situation had changed, but not in the way she expected. It was not a different location at all. The room she was placed in was actually part of the same bunker, and Kibbe had only driven in circles for hours to confuse her. As Abby was locked in this new room, she began to notice strange, unsettling details, such as screws and wires on the door. Kibbe told her that if anyone ever tried to break in, the room would catch on fire. This was just another step in Abby's grueling ordeal, but it wasn't until later that she began to see a shift in her relationship with her captor. Although Kibbe was still abusive, he started opening up to her more. He shared disturbing details of his past and his beliefs. An atheist and objectivist, Kibbe would engage in philosophical debates with Abby, often lecturing her on libertarianism and his disdain for the government. Despite the cruelty she faced, Abby began to see a different side of Kibbe, one that was more human, even if still twisted. One day, Kibbe casually mentioned that he was thinking about making counterfeit money. He justified it by saying, "Morally, they owe me." For Abby, this was yet another insight into Kibbe's warped mindset. As strange as it seemed, she agreed to go along with whatever he wanted, believing that it was the best way to gain his trust. Over the following weeks, Abby learned even more about Kibbe's personality. He stopped wearing his mask around her and began to share more details about his life. His obsessive fixation on Ayn Rand, his interest in the Gadsden flag, and his libertarian beliefs became recurring themes in their conversations. Eventually, Kibbe's focus on Abby began to fade. Instead of continuously abusing her, he began seeing sex workers. One of these workers, 27-year-old Lauren Monday, had a peculiar encounter with Kibbe. Lauren rented a hotel room with Kibbe, but he didn't ask for anything sexual. Instead, he wanted someone to talk to. He confessed that he had done bad things, and Lauren responded with understanding, saying, "We've all done bad things in life." Kibby seemed relieved to have someone to talk to, and when Lauren fell asleep, he gently rubbed her head and played with her hair. In the morning, Lauren found a pile of counterfeit $50 bills on the table, left there by Kibby. When she tried to use the money at a local Walmart, the cashier immediately noticed that it was counterfeit and called the police. Furious, Lauren contacted Kibby, berating him for putting her in such a dangerous position. Despite Kibby giving her a fake name, Lauren was able to provide the police with a description of his heavily damaged vehicle and his email address. Her actions would eventually play a crucial role in his downfall. At this point, Abby's situation had become increasingly difficult to navigate. Despite the growing strain, she had learned to deal with Kibby's mood swings and outbursts. She understood that the key to surviving was to remain calm and never show fear. This survival strategy helped her in the moments when Kibby's anger flared. During one of his rages, he stormed into the bunker and slammed Abby's door open, screaming at her. As usual, Abby stayed calm, asking him what was wrong. Kibby explained that something had gone wrong with the counterfeit money, and that he did something unexpected. He took Abby out of the room and led her to another part of the property. To her surprise, Abby realized that Kibby hadn't actually moved her to a new location. He had merely driven in circles for hours before bringing her back to the same place she had been kept for months. At this point, Kibby removed Abby's shock collar and handed her a black plastic bag. He told her, "I need to get you out of here." It was a strange shift in behavior, and Abby was left unsure of what Kibby intended. Would he kill her or simply leave her somewhere else? But as they drove, Abby began to feel a glimmer of hope when she saw a sign that read "Conway ahead." When Kibby stopped the car, he ordered Abby to get out. He drove away without another word, leaving her standing in the same place where he had abducted her nearly a year ago. Abby stood there, overwhelmed with emotion. She had finally been released from her captor's clutches, and for the first time in months, she was free. Abby's journey home was just as unexpected as her escape. She walked for what felt like an eternity, but eventually, she reached the doorstep of her home. As she opened the door, she heard her mother's voice on the phone. When Abby called out to her, her mother was shocked to see her. The moment of reunion was emotional, filled with disbelief and relief. Though Abby's mother looked visibly different, exhausted by the stress of the past months, she was overjoyed to have her daughter back. Despite her freedom, Abby's ordeal was far from over. Kibby, knowing that the police had returned his guns after the civil case against him was dropped, warned Abby that if she ever revealed his identity, there would be consequences. He threatened her, saying that either he or his libertarian friends would come after her. Fearing for her safety, Abby kept Kibby's name a secret for a while. She didn't want to put her family at risk. In the end, Abby's incredible resilience and ability to humanize her captor, combined with her calm, survival-oriented approach, led to her escape. What might have seemed impossible to others, she achieved with a remarkable strength of character. Kibby, who once saw her as nothing more than a captive, had become attached to her in a twisted way. Through her unwavering determination and survival instincts, Abby was able to find her freedom and ultimately return home.